Hey there, bike dorks, cycling enthusiasts, my lovers. It's Noble here. Welcome to my bike build. Today, we're diving into the drivetrain debate. 1x, 2x, or 3x. Is a 1x really an upgrade? Or does the best choice depend on your riding style? And what about those big gear jumps in the 1x cassette? How does that impact your ride? Well, let's break it all down. Now, I made a video about the importance of understanding your drivetrain, and it's not a particularly sexy topic when you're talking about bikes. It's kind of boring in some ways, but you know, besides the fit is the most important thing about your bike. You have to buy a bike that fits you in order to maximize your fun and to think you're having a good time or feel like you're having a good time. You know, you have to get that bike that fits your body. Then the next most important thing, I would argue, is your drivetrain. I think like your drivetrain is like almost like a referee in a game. Like if the referee does a good job, you just don't talk about him. It's only when the referee messes up, you talk about him. Oh, this guy sucks. He's making the wrong calls, or they're making the wrong calls, right? So it's kind of like that with a drivetrain. It's like one of those things. It's not a glamorous thing to talk about, but if your drivetrain, it works for you, you're having fun. If it doesn't work, then it just can really ruin the cycling experience, especially if your drivetrain isn't matched up to the terrain that you're trying to navigate. Like if you go in a place with a lot of hills and you don't have enough gears to get up those hills, you're just going to avoid riding in some places, and it makes it so you have to, you know, change the navigation route or something just to avoid some hills. And if your gear range is too wide, then sometimes you can't maximize the efficiency. If you've got a lot of flatter surfaces, or you're going more on bike lanes that are really made for you to just go ahead and put in that pedaling power for long periods of time, you might not need such a wide gear range, and you might want a tighter range so that you can maximize your cadence. 1x drivetrains have revolutionized cycling, becoming the standard for gravel and mountain bikes, and even showing up in road and urban settings. But are they perfect? Well, not quite. One common issue is that the big jumps in between the gears in the rear cassette. On a 1x, you're only going to have that one chain ring up front, so you're stuck with whatever you've got. And so you're using that back cassette, the cassette at the back, to give you your gear range. Wide range cassettes like 11 to 42 or 10 to 50, they often have big jumps in between gears, making it harder to maintain a consistent cadence for some riders, especially when talking about paved surfaces where you want consistent speed over a long period of time. I've heard the argument that when you're going on paved surfaces, it's more noticeable, especially if you're trying to keep up with group rides or you're trying to maximize your speed. So why would someone choose a 2x? I would say the 2x is the go-to choice if you're a roadie, you like going on the road, you have a road bike with more aggressive geometry. I feel like those bikes, and accompanied with the fact that they're lightweight, means you don't always need as big a gear ratios to get up hills. They're kind of really efficient at getting up hills. So you can go with a tighter cassette at the back because you have the two up front, you have the two chain rings, and you can kind of maximize that size of the chain ring, the big chain ring, so you can maximize your speed. And so this is best for if you're competitive and you want every watt to count and you don't want to lose cadence through gear changing as much. You really want to have the tightest gear ratio as possible, because ultimately if your competitors have a 2x and you have a 1x and everyone's really going as hard as they can, the 2x is going to be more efficient. So if you're with friends and it's all good, doesn't really matter as much. But if you're in a situation where you're really trying to maximize the speed, you're going to want the 2x. That's why pretty much the Tour de France at this point, people who ride at that competitive level, they're going to run 2xs most of the time. Even in a lot of gravel competitions, you see a lot of people running 2x just to maximize that every gear counting. Now with the 3x drivetrain, it's less common on new bikes today, but it's a pretty good choice for beginners or touring cyclists who need that maximum versatility. With 3 chain rings and a wide cassette, you get a massive gear range, and you could tackle steep climbs, heavy loads, like when you're actually carrying things with your bike, especially if you're going out into the unknown for long distance touring. For beginners, it's a double-sided sword, because in some ways it's great for beginners because it has so many gear ranges that you find You'll definitely find a gear ratio that works for you in most situations. But in some ways it can be bad because it's a lot of gear changing. It can be, for some people, having to have 3 chain rings up front with the 2 in the back, it can be so much to do that people tend to just not shift as much because, when you have a 1x and you can just go up, you can go down, you're more willing to experiment. But if you have the chain ring up front, it just takes a while and you really have to want to know how your gears change efficiently. So there's a learning curve to having a 3x with a cassette at the back, just changing between the front and the rear derailleur. So anything more than a 1x, you're going to need that derailleur and a shifter on the other side of your handlebars, so that you can operate that. So it's like shifting, you're using your brakes and you got two shifters to deal with. It can be overwhelming, especially for riders like me who started with single speed, Toys R Us bikes where you just pedal, you get on it and you just pedal. And if a hill's too big, you just walk up it. The concept of being able to navigate all of those, it took me a second to get used to it and really know how to use my drivetrain efficiently to tackle the terrain that I was looking at. My mentality at the end of the day is whatever drivetrain you end up having, if you have a 3x, 2x, 1x, if you just actually take a second to learn how to use whatever you have, that's going to maximize your fun ultimately, right? So really just practicing shifting and learning how to use whatever you've got, that's the best approach, rather than thinking about what you don't have. So in terms of that, like, if you do have a choice, well, what is the best for you? I would argue in the city, urban, flat terrain, 1x, single speed, simple, low maintenance. If you're a commuting rider, you know your route from home to work and you know how many gears can do you right, get as minimum gears as possible, I would say. Just if you know that's all you're going to do with the bike, because the more gears you have, the poorer it shifts. Just as a general rule, like the less gears you have, the better your bike shifts, up until, like, if you have a single speed, you never shift. So that's going to be the best shifting bike because it doesn't have to, and you just keep your cadence from cycling. But for touring adventures, all-day adventures, you do have to consider that you're going to be carrying loads. So 2x and 3x offer a great range. But also, if you just kind of work out the gear ratios, and again, watch my gear ratio video. If you work out, you'll actually find that in many cases, the 2x covers, if you gear it right, can cover everything that the 3x can. So if you're updating your gear ratio, then I would say actually calculate the gear ratios through numbers and see how much gears are equivalent to the 2x and 3x. And again, I made a video on that, so if you have any questions about that, or just get in the comment section. Now if you're a roadie, you're going for speed, and you're going for competition, you're going to want to get as much efficiency as you can, so the 2x is probably going to be your go-to. So basically, at the end of the day, nothing's perfect, and it's just about matching your setup with your riding style and your goals. If you're a nerd like me, you know what I'm saying, you want to check out my video, that'll really help understand, because a lot of the time, you might even be able to get a 1x that covers the range of a 3x. It might not have as many gears and might not have as many steps, but it's actually quite possible to have the same basic gear ratio, even regardless of how many chain rings you have up front, as long as you calculate it and match what kind of cassette you would need to achieve that goal. Thank you for watching. Please get in the comment section. You know how we do this. Like, subscribe, tell people to watch the videos, you know what I'm saying, so that I can get more products and things to review. That's kind of the goal, and go on fun bike excursions here and there. All right, partners, my lovers, peace out.